Welcome to the Unity Guides Expert Interview Series. My name is Clayton Stinson, and I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by the Unity Guide, where we help develop Unity within companies running on the entrepreneurial operating system. We do this through fractional integrator services and coaching for the visionary and integrator, as well as their leadership teams. Recently, I've been meeting so many amazing people, and I thought there has to be a way that I can take a piece of the conversations I have week in and week out and share them with the business community to add value. And one of these amazing people is Juliana Lindsay. Juliana is an EOS implementer in the Texas area. And the topic that we're going to discuss today is blind spots. But before we get into that, I just have a question for you, Juliana. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became an EOS implementer?
Yes, absolutely. My brother's in Texas, but I'm actually in Utah.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine, because I've lived in Texas before, so it's not a big deal.
So you have clients in Texas then.
It's not a big deal at all. So I was introduced to EOS from my EO Form group back in 2016. And I actually learned about rocket fuel first, which I loved, knowing the visionary and the integrator and what that relationship should be and not what we were actually practicing, and just took it to like a duck to water. And having implemented EOS into my company, I've been able to expand and have other companies to the point where with two of the companies, I only work a few days a year. Not because, well, really, there's nothing for me to do. I could go visit, but I think I get in the way, and they prefer me to be out of the way and really get their work done. And I think that was the power of EOS. And I loved it so much. And I talked about it all the time. My friends joked with me and are like, you bleed orange. You just you drunk the Kool-Aid of EOS. And they actually talked me into being an implementer. Wow. I have some free time on my hands, not needing to be in the business as much. Yeah. And being an EOS implementer is the perfect fit.
So based on what you just said, I know that you are, but I'm guessing you're visionary, right?
I'm definitely visionary.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. So tell me, why did you want to talk about blind spots today? Why are you passionate about that?
I think, I'm really passionate about it because by addressing your blind spots as a visionary, which you can only do with a very strong and solid integrator, that's what gives you your freedom that Dan Sullivan talks about, of the time, the purpose, the money, and relationships. And it really gave me back what I was wanting to do in the first place, which was growing a team and a group of individuals where everybody rises. With the high tides, all ships rise, and giving them opportunities to grow and develop. And if you don't have an integrator that's brave enough or strong enough of, I can enter a little bit of the danger. It's hard when you're visionary, someone who's writing your paycheck. But to dive in and say, you know what? I actually think you're the problem. I think you're the bottleneck of what's happening. And until you can really address that, it's freeing for a visionary to let us really go into what we're truly great at, which is the big relationships, the big vision. It's the culture of the company of this is where we need to head. And then truly turning that over to the integrator to where they can execute and make that a reality and give other people the opportunity to shine and to live their unique ability. It actually helps you grow faster. You get a better return, I believe, because everyone's invested in it. It's a part of everyone's vision now.
You said a lot of good things in there, and I made some notes. I want to ask some questions, follow-up questions to the things that you said. So the first thing that I'll ask you is you said you read Rocket Fuel and it changed the way you were doing it as a visionary integrator. Tell us a little bit more about that. How were you doing it before and what changed?
So I think when before I was the visionary and I was the integrator
Mm-hmm,
because I wouldn't let go. In
mm-hmm,
my mind, I felt like I can do it better. I can do it faster. I can do it quicker. But what I found was I really was getting in the way because I trusted, well, I thought in the beginning I trusted my integrator and that they knew what to do. But then when it really came down to it, she might approach something differently than the way I would have approached it. But the outcome could be the same, if not even better.
mm-hmm,
But I would get in the way of like, well, why aren't we doing it this way? Or it would be that constant challenging or questioning
mm-hmm,
to where it would get in the way. And then for me, I was in franchising. So I had a lot of different locations. So one leadership team and then different locations where you're executing. So then I would go into a location and they'd be like, well, what do you think about this? And I would just answer it of, well, this is how it should be.
mm-hmm,
But the integrator could have already been working with them on a process and then know so much more of the history and the coaching on the leadership that I now just messed up. Or it made it look like, well, what they say doesn't matter. You should just do this. And then it caused a lot of contention in the organization, not meaning to be in the way,
Your
but
intentions
I
were good.
100% was in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally had to sit me down and say, this is great, but we have to decide what is your lane and what is my lane.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to not cross over. And I got really good at the phrase of, did you mention that to Leah first? Like, I would just, have
Yeah.
we talked to her
Redirect.
yet? Have we included her in this conversation? And had to really like back off and say, you know what? If you really are accountable for operations, I've got to let go of that vine and
Mm-hmm.
let you actually be accountable for operations and not me getting in the way or messing up or, well, why didn't we do this? Or how
Yeah.
can we do it this way?
So you talked about at the beginning, you talked about constantly questioning your integrator. What do you think that like I know that it wasn't your the intention of it, but what were the consequences, do you think, for it's Leah, did you say?
Yeah.
That what did all the questioning and doubting cause, do you think, in her now that you look back?
Oh, 100% frustration.
Yeah.
She was here right now. She's amazing. She is like so phenomenal in every way. But I think it was so much frustration for her and feeling like she had to redo the work. So I would go in with all these good intentions and it would be like this tornado in the unit. And then she would have to go back and it was a lot of cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let me give you clarification on this. Let me explain this. Let me explain how this goes. And we got really good about disciplining ourselves to those L10 meetings of let me be your whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
So when she's stuck and she doesn't know what to do, I can be your soundboard. Let's have that discussion. But you really need one voice to the team. And we've had as many as 80 employees under us. So it's a bigger team. It kind of fluctuates in and out.
Yeah.
But you really need one voice to the team. And we decided that one voice, it needs to be the integrator. And where it was most liberating and freeing for myself, and it was scary. It was the most scary thing I've ever done, actually letting go, but was Leah needed to have the veto vote. If
Mm-hmm.
she's going to be accountable for operations and executing on this vision, then she's got to be able to say, you know what, Juliana, that's a great idea. Let's address that maybe next year, but this is not the time.
Yeah.
And to kind of slow down and be like, okay, this will work, this won't work. Or
Yeah.
when she's stuck and, okay, managers are talking to me about this, area managers are talking about this. How do I handle it? We can have that conversation, but then she's the one that returns and reports and is the message to the company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. And that's what EOS teaches, right? That the integrator should have the tie-breaking vote and all that kind of thing. I'm I don't think I realized how fortunate I was with my first visionary, uh, because he when he promoted me to integrator, he said, Clayton, when I touch operations, everything just blows up in my face. And
Yeah.
so you do it. You'll be better, and I'll just let go. And he
Yeah.
did. Like he was phenomenal at letting go. Like he's like, let me know if you need anything. And he just went and bought another business,
Yeah.
essentially. So, there's a high level of trust there, uh,
Hmm.
for him to be able to do that. And, don't get me wrong, we had, you know, same page meetings and stuff, but, it just allowed me, to be that one voice, like you said.
Yeah.
And he
And to
was,
own that role.
yeah, to own it, to really own it, and step into my unique ability, which I didn't even know that I had.
Hmm.
But he gave me that opportunity, right, to
Yeah.
step into it, and I'm so thankful for that. Now, years later, now I've been involved in other VI duos that it's not quite so clean, right, where it's a little harder to do that. So you said, you talk about strong, like having a strong integrator, that will push back and will challenge you. um was that, like, how long have you been with Leah, firstly, working with Leah?
She has been with me for, gosh, over 8 years.
Okay.
Hmm.
Was that hard for you to encourage her to do that, or did she always do that? I'm just curious.
She didn't always do it, but I think for the visionaries out there listening to this, um, we need to take feedback well, constructive, positive, all of the feedback we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Because really what we're focused on is the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
We're very much so outcome driven and not necessarily the nitty gritty of the how do we get there. And I think honestly, it probably took her a year and a half to really build up the courage where she would kind of test the boundaries and give a comment and then kind of hold her breath and wait to see how did I respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to look in the mirror and take that hard look of what's truth, what's not truth, because sometimes people will give you an opinion and you are doing something, but you're doing it for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't do it, you're not going to have the outcome
Right.
that you're looking for. If that's the
Yeah.
case, explain the why, but you have to keep that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's that give and take of, and when you're doing that give and take of, she's giving me feedback, she sees how I respond. We talk about it honestly and openly. And sometimes it's like the way you said it kind of hurt my feelings. So let me just get that out there and
That's
work through some
yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, or it was a blow to my ego. And I thought I was doing great, but now I'm not doing great.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all human and we're experiencing human emotions regardless. So work through some of that, but don't bring it into the facts of the conversation. So then when you're going back to, okay, what can we do to actually work on this? And that's where it was, what's your lane and what's my lane? Because when you're doing this, and it's not that she's telling me you can't come into your stores, you can't come into these locations, but
Mm-hmm.
she's like, when you come in, if you model these certain behaviors, it makes my job so much easier where they've got to return and report to me, and I have to directly manage and hold them accountable for what they've committed to accomplishing and what they've committed to doing. And you don't want to be in those details of the conversation. So, where she knows all of that, and she'll update me on same page meetings or on our L10s,
Mm-hmm.
and I trust what she's doing. And if she's stuck, she'll talk to me. But it was building that trust of, okay, this is how we're going through it. And then when I could see the effects it was having with the confusion of the employees,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you really, that's where I became a believer. You need that one voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going in, so like this upcoming year, I work 4 days for 2024. We've
Mhm.
already planned the 4 days that every salon, they will see my face. I will be doing some work with the beauty schools and doing some community work, but we know those 4 days. And other than that, there's nothing for me to do. I'm able to let go because she's developed into that role where she can be accountable. And she does have the tools and the resources to execute on that well. And by me letting go, I realized, like your first visionary, where you said this was amazing, he got out of the way. The second I got out of the way and I let her fully own it, because if we don't get out of the way and let them fully own it, it's kind of like we're micromanaging. Or we are getting in the way of, like, well, I don't think you should execute it this way. You can't fully execute that plan that you created and that you're responsible for getting that outcome. So the second I stepped away, it gave her this freedom where she's like, oh, I can manage my own schedule.
Yeah.
I can manage this. I can manage when I'm visiting stores. I can manage when I'm doing my catch up work. And she was able to scale her time to where she has a better life work balance,
Mhm.
where they're able to grow and to scale. And by me letting go, it modeled it for her. So that next layer of management,
Mm.
he set them that example of, this is how I'm going to let go of the vine. And this is where you need to take ownership. Like, you are the owner of this unit. You're
Mhm.
the owner of this salon. Let's put on this hat. This is the lens I want you thinking of when you're managing these individual teams. And it's been remarkable over the years to see these managers rise and these stylists rise, where if you teach people correct principles, they can govern themselves. And
Mhm.
we're seeing it happen to where we now have managers that are like, what more can I do? What else can I do? Because they feel like they're not doing their job because they've trained their team so well. They've delegated and elevated, and they've let all the boats rise with these high tides.
Yeah.
And there's higher retention, higher job satisfaction. We're bringing in more money. I'm done better than I've ever done, and I'm only working 4 days a year. Sometimes I get that guilty conscience of, you should be doing more.
Mhm.
But then I'm like, well, what else could I do? Because then I'm stepping on somebody else's toes that they're performing in their unique ability, and let them
Yeah.
shine. Let them take the credit for how amazing they are.
So you're living the EOS life.
I am definitely living the EOS life.
Interesting. Um, I want to ask you something that I saw when I was a first integrator. I noticed there's just an inherent intimidation factor when you're the owner. Um, so I would be in an office with one of the team, and the visionary would come in, and he would ask someone to do something, and then he would leave, and I could tell, looking at the person he was talking to, that they did not understand what he wanted them to do. And I would just ask them, hey, did you understand that? And thankfully they felt safe enough to go, no, I didn't. And I would say, okay, well, let me explain it to you. And then I would explain it to them. At the end, I'd say, do you understand now? Yes. Okay. And then I would leave. And I would ask them, like, why didn't you ask? And it's like, I don't know. He's just so intimidating. It's not intentional, right? Like, he
Mhm.
doesn't, essentially it's a blind spot, right? But
Yeah.
back to the blind spots, like, he has no idea. But the reality is that there is that, aura of
Yeah.
you're the owner, you're the visionary. And if people don't have a relationship with you, close relationship with you, there's that intimidation factor. Do you think that did you experience that yourself? Tell me a little bit about your experience with that kind of thing.
Yes, like 100% yes. You're the
Yeah.
boss. So it's always like, they're always tense the
Yeah.
second you walk into the doors. And when we were rolling out EOS, I wanted to attend some of the manager level L10s to be a support, to be aware of what's going on, and also kind of see how we're handling it. And when I was on these manager L10s, they didn't want to look weak,
Mm-hmm.
or they didn't want to look like I'm not competent to do my job. And some of that we really have to be good, and we have to be knowledgeable as visionaries of we're the ones responsible leading the culture for open and honest.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand your job, you are perfectly fine to raise your hand and call it out and be like, I don't understand this, or my rock is off track, or I don't understand how to get this. I'm going this direction, but how do I shift it and go this direction? And we need to show vulnerability because they are not going to be vulnerable themselves until they see us be
Mm-hmm.
like, man, I tried this and it was a total failure. And this is where I was off track. And this is where it was brought to my attention. And this is how I got it back on track. But we're all human. But when I would attend their L10s, it was like, let's just talk about the best things. And it was all surface level. Like they didn't want to go deep
Yeah.
to really get the impact of what they needed from that meeting because they didn't want to look incompetent. And that was one of my blind spots where Leah said, it's actually best if you don't attend. And I was like, I basically got fired from every job. I try to weasel my way in there because you love your teams and we're so grateful for our employees. Like we're interdependent. We want them to be successful and have impact and meaning to their lives and to be successful in their unique rights and abilities that
Mm-hmm.
they're wanting.
Mm-hmm.
And you care about them so much, but when you go to talk to them, you're putting so much panic and fear into them that they're just like, oh my goodness. And I've got a funny story. I am a hairstylist. That's how I started. And
Okay.
I'm a single mom, been a single mom my kids' whole lives, and really had to be scrappy. Like that's one of my personal values of we're going to hold this together, even if it's just with duct tape and smiles. Like we're going to get through this. And I went into a salon and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a cutting shift. And I just went in and I did a cutting shift, and they had hired a new employee, and she didn't know who I was. And I didn't go in and introduce myself as, oh, I'm the owner. I just said, hi, I'm Julie. I'm excited to be working with you today. And she was great. She gave me a list of chores. I need you to clean the bathroom. I need you to do this. You got to do this in the back room. And I was like, that's great. I did. I went and I scrubbed toilets. I cleaned the mirrors. I did everything she asked. Like some clients came in and she's like, oh, I've got this perm coming in. Can you do this style? And I'm like, I'd be happy to. Like I did everything. We worked the entire 6-hour shift together. And she was a go-getter. She wasn't a manager. She was just a stylist. But she was like, these are all the things that need to get done today. And I cleaned product shelves. I did all of it, like a lot of grunt work that you would not typically see an owner do. And I went home for the day, and the next girl was coming in who did know who I was. And she's like, oh, hi, Juliana. It's so good seeing you today. What are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I came to help out. And that poor girl found out I was the owner and just went ghost white. She thought for sure I'm going to get fired. And I just went up and gave her a big hug. And I said, you know what? I am so proud of you for being a go-getter so that we know whether management's here or not here, the most important things are getting done. And I'm happy to be part of the team. But I mean, we could laugh about it years
Yeah,
later.
that's
But in
hilarious.
the time, she's like, that's the most humiliating experience of my whole life. And I was like, oh, this is what it's like when they don't know who I am.
Wow, that'd be like there's a lot of levels to that. Like that would be so refreshing. I think sometimes as the leader, it's just nice to do good work. It's like I not have to wear that hat, but it's very rare that you can, right?
Yes, it's very
Because
rare.
knows who they are and you are, and they get weird around
Yeah,
you. But
yeah.
you're just basically doing undercover boss. Like I think there's a show about that, isn't there? Like,
Without knowing that I was doing it. But for
yeah.
me, it was so great of everything that the integrator is working on, distributing out and communication to see it like coming to life from the very front level. It
Mhm.
was honestly like a moment of being so proud of all the team members and proud of that manager for being like, this is what the salon needs to look like. This is how we need to be treating people. These
Wow.
environments matter. And for her thinking she must be a newbie, let's make
Yeah,
sure
I
she
need to help her.
understands.
Yeah.
It was it
Well,
was
is she still there? I'm just I'm really curious.
she was with me for almost 3 years, and then she left to just stay home and focus on the
Okay.
kids.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but amazing to have someone at that level leading like that. That's awesome. That's what
Yeah.
you. Um,
Oh, for sure.
I was just thinking about what else I want to ask you. Like, there's so much good stuff here. I like what you said about modeling letting go. Actually, no. First, I want to talk about what you said about leading with vulnerability, right? Because I do find that when you open up about your own weaknesses or something like that, it gives everyone permission. If you ask, them first to do it, they'll be like, "Oh, no way," right? Like, I'm not gonna do that. But if you lead, it lets down the guard. Because I've experienced, because as a fractional integrator, you come in, you're the new guy, you're the outsider, you're trying to win. You have to
Mhm.
earn their respect. You have to develop
You're proving
trust.
yourself.
But I find that it's very similar, like in certain terms of there's an intimidation factor, right? And I find that people are often, when they are pointing out things that are wrong or issues, they're apologizing
Mhm.
all the time. And I'm like, no, 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 you're missing the point. Like, this is the information that I need in order to make your life better. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, the way I put it is, I need the truth. I'm
Yes.
I'm on a journey to discover the truth so that I can improve everyone's experience, and that's the heart that I have behind it, right? I'm not here to make the owner rich. I'm here to improve the functioning of this company so that your life as the employee is better, and ultimately in the long run that will result in more money in the
Mhm.
pocket and everyone's pocket,
Yes.
right?
Everybody.
Everybody's pocket. Like, if we're more profitable, it means you can get promoted quicker, you can get a raise quicker, you can, that kind of thing.
Well,
But
and your quality of life
yeah,
just goes, even as an employee, your life work balance is so much better and less stress and more
yeah,
predictable. You
yeah,
know the expectations. Yeah.
yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And that's the perspective that I go into, worldview, if you will, that I go into it with. It's like, how do we make this just better for everyone?
Yeah.
Clients, staff, owner, manager, community, right? Like, how do we have a big impact everywhere, right? And EOS is a tool, right, to help
Mhm.
that happen. Um, but open and honest is really crucial to that. It's like, not just my blind spot as a leader, but my direct reports blind spots and company blind spots,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's a crucial part of the journey.
Yeah.
So
I think it starts with you as a visionary where you have to, and I just had it be, it was just a meeting of, to your point, we need the truth and we're on a discovery of how can we run and be the best that we are. In the hair industry, you have like an 80% turnover.
wow.
It is crazy. And we've got it down to like less than 40%. We're really close to like 30% turnover,
Mhm.
which is rare for this kind of an industry. And I'm in some college towns where we've got some seasonal
Right.
employees where they're going to be there while they're a student at a university and then they'll be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to say, this is what we're looking for as a team, and it's going to start with me. And getting that, whether it's GWC or seat, or going over some of those expectations of, let's evaluate me as the visionary first. We're not going to look at anybody else on the team. Let's look at me first. And then it's trickling down through all those different layers to where they can talk to you. And if you hear some things that are hard, or maybe they didn't have as much tact when it came out, taking that moment just to breathe and being like, it's coming from a good place because they want me to have the information to help us get this kind of an outcome.
Mhm.
Now, why am I doing what I am I doing? Do I need to keep it? Do I not need to keep it? And when it comes to building that trust to let go of the vine, you have to make sure that they understand that process or that outcome that you're looking for all the way through. Whether you have to go over it once, twice, or 20 times, it doesn't matter. But you need to make sure that they understand that process. And then you've got to measure it. So, are we doing it frequently enough to get the outcome that we're looking for? But how often do I need to be measuring that it's getting done correctly? And over the years, me having to review and follow up with everything that the integrator's doing, it's less and less
Mhm.
because there's more confidence, there's more trust, there's more knowledge and skill and time of, yeah, I really know and own this seat and what it is I'm doing. And then seeing that trickle down through all the different levels of leadership has been phenomenal. And I have a lot of employees that have been with me for close to 8 years. And they're like, the way you are now from the way you were in the beginning is like night and day difference. Because I was so busy trying to be the stylist, the manager, the area manager, the GM, the owner, doing all these different things, marketing, representing the community, trying to be a mom and show up for activities and juggling all these different things. I was stressed out and burnt out. And you can't do it alone. But I also don't think we're meant to do things alone. I think we're meant to have a support system, whether it's families or community or even in our business, where we come together, we collaborate together, and something amazing happens. We're able to accomplish something so much greater than we ever could trying to do it ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm. In those eight, like how important has, personal growth been then for you? Like, has that been the most important thing, you think?
Oh, it's been huge. One, I felt already going into the business and entrepreneurial space. I was really young. I was in my 20s. I had no boats. I had to support the kids, and I
Mhm.
had to be scrappy about it. So I couldn't afford the pride to be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, I
Mhm.
know nothing. So when I joined EO, I was like, I know nothing. I need help with the P&L, how I'm running payroll, how I'm filing taxes. How do I even run a business? I didn't realize that a business needs an operating system. That took me 4 years to figure out. There was so much to learn and development, but it's nice because I see it with the employees where they're like, oh, I read this book and this is a really cool concept.
Mhm.
Can we discuss it? And we're all getting better. It trickled down to my kids, where
Mhm.
my oldest lives in a different state. She lives with my parents and grandparents. But in her own right, she's a little entrepreneur and brave and graduating high school this year. And my son thinks and approaches things differently. And being able to let go, delegate, and elevate and realize it's not all about me.
Mhm.
I don't need all the credit. And together we can get so much more accomplished. And if we really are living in our unique ability, all the ships rise with that high tide. It has allowed me to have a better relationship with the kids. I've been able to do more community projects. Kids and I opened up an orphanage in Colombia, and we've been doing give back projects. We've been able to do all kinds of things that never would have happened if I was trying to wear every hat
You were
and
holding.
not having that trust to say, you know what, you are Leah today, she is so phenomenal. I cannot like praise her enough. She does this job a million times better than I ever could. And
Mhm.
I would have had no idea how amazing she is and what an amazing leader she is to all this team. And we have people that when they quit, they write us letters and they're like, the things you taught us in our personal lives. Like, I'm a better person having even worked for you. And when we go through these different processes, they're like, you taught us how to be a grown up. You
Mhm.
taught us how to manage and budget not only our time, but our money and they're accomplishing all these wonderful things. And it's really to her credit because she's done so phenomenal and she never would have shined like this if I kept trying to take over.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's the same for me. I would not, I just last week I went for dinner with my visionary, and I just explained that to him, like how thankful I am, right? That he gave me that opportunity and that I was able to discover my unique ability, and now use it to help other people the way that I am. And I absolutely love what I'm doing. Love it, right? It doesn't feel like work. So I owe it to him, for creating that opportunity and helping me to see. And I think we owe it to our people, right, to do that for them. So
Yeah.
thank you. So there's a couple things there just to sum up. You said you talked about not having pride, like dropping the pride, which I think is a barrier uh,
Yes.
that holds a lot of leaders back, not just visionaries, but leaders in general. And you talked about, humility, like I know nothing, like help me, right? Like let's work together to figure this out because I don't know, right? Like that when you come into a situation like that, um, and that's one of the nice things about coming in as a fractional. If you don't know the industry, it's like I don't know anything, right? So help me, let me help you. Let's
Yeah.
work together and we'll fix this. So that's great. So awesome. Thank you so much, Juliana. This has been really good. So if someone wants to learn more about your coaching and what you do, how should they get in touch with you?
They can email me at juliana.lindsay@eosworldwide.com. Um, or I'm on LinkedIn. You can always reach out to me through LinkedIn or Facebook, and I can send you some of those links that you can attach at the end as well.
Sounds good. So on behalf of our viewers, thank you for joining us and for sharing your story. This one, I'm excited to share this one because I really think there's an opportunity to impact a lot of visionaries out there. And thank you for sharing. And maybe I need to talk with you about interviewing Leah as well. It might
She,
be it might be interesting to get her side of how she saw it all.
yeah, she is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I've been the lucky one, and thank you for letting me just share some of my thoughts, and I hope it
Yeah.
helps. I hope it can help someone.
Awesome. Thank you. So if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel for future interviews with experts in the world of business.